Hello and welcome to DigFin VOX, Voices in Digital Finance. I'm your host, James DiBiasio. If you enjoy the program, like, share, subscribe. My guest today is Julian Anderson, co-founder of Divit, a payments company that finds itself on the cutting edge of helping one of the big global banks with its merchant acquiring strategy in Asia. I spoke with Julian about his background in insurance, where he was working to rationalize payments, and how that segued into a startup focused on helping merchants with payments and rewards. Julian Anderson, welcome to DigFin VOX.
Great to be here, James.
Looking forward to this conversation. This is actually my first Vox reporting of 2024, so Happy New Year to everybody. Julian, I've known you intermittently through the fintech scene in Hong Kong for a little while now. I first met you when you were still working in the insurance space before you struck out and became a founder of your own fintech business. So I'd like to start off talking about the firm that you run, Divit. Quite different, I think, than what you were doing when you were in the insurance space. So let's talk about some of the problems that you spotted in the marketplace. Maybe tell me, let's go back into that career while you were still working at whether it was QBE or Sun Life. How did that experience get you into where you are today? And then, of course, we're going to get into the meat of some of the issues that you're dealing with in the fintech side.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I spent about 20 years in insurance in different roles, from being a broker and actually selling the product in Australia until when I came up to Hong Kong in 2012 with QBE, which is when we purchased Hang Seng, their book of business, and we integrated the Hang Seng insurance company into a QBE entity that's still running today. I suppose going back to where I began, prior to all of this insurance stuff, I'd always been working in tech, and I'd had a tech background. I've actually had two separate startups at different times, around either insurance or directly in tech. And my background being a software engineer, and my first degree after I finished that was straight mathematics. Kind of led me towards doing something a little bit more, a bit more technical, especially with the large insurers. And when I joined QBE and I came up to Hong Kong in 2012, the first real exposure to Asia was amazing. And in those days, payments for insurance policies were taken by check. And many of them still are, which is incredible. And fast forward to late 2016, when I joined Sun Life, we started to see some of the changes happen in the payments space in the market. Obviously, there was lots of regulation around, knowing your customer, anti-money laundering, terrorism finance, all of that good stuff, which needed to be done. And source of funds were a very important part of that, and making sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And making sure that if you were buying an insurance policy for hundreds of thousands of dollars, that you knew where that money was coming from. So what we ended up doing was, instead of is looking, because I was running the digital transformation team, looking for alternate ways that we could remove the friction of financial underwriting and dealing with all of those type of issues. And we reached out to a number of different banks, and this was spurred on by a question of, why do we take so many checks? Why do we make all of these payments in checks? And in late 2018 and the start of 2019, FPS was launched in Hong Kong.
Faster payment system.
The faster payment system, exactly.
Yes. This is obviously the banks under the leadership of the HKMA, the Monetary Authority, knitted together so that anybody with a mobile phone or an email could send money to within Hong Kong within certain amounts.
Yeah, so the daily limit is, I think, 4 million for some of the banks. So it's quite significant. And I believe that the main driver of this was the auto pay platform. So, when you top up your Octopus and then you can link that to your bank account, and this auto pay system is due to be decommissioned, I believe, this year.
Mm.
Um, so that was one of the drivers for change. The other driver for change was around just moving money between the banks. If you're inside, the HSBC network, it was free for HSBC and Hang Seng accounts. But if you were moving it outside of those between the different banks, there was sometimes a $10 or $15 charge. So that went away. And the HKMA also had it as a dual currency system. So you could pay in Hong Kong dollars or in RMB. So that platform we looked at, and at the same time you had PayMe pop up, you had WeChat and Alipay really start to gain some significant ground in the mainland. And I was thinking there was like, hang on, how can we accept payments via this FPS system rather than taking a check? So we did a market scan. We looked at all of the local banks and the international banks, and we figured out a way that we could create a set of APIs which could be consumed by us as an insurance company. And we started off with just looking at, let's get rid of checks and let's find a way that we don't need to send a check to our customers and to our clients. And the first thing that we started with was to kind of to test on ourselves. So we had our internal employee medical claims, and instead of cutting a check for that, we sent them a payment via FPS. And we went from 0% adoption to within the first 3 months up to 70% of claims that were paid to our staff were via this system. And so I started to think, well, there's some legs here. This
Clearly
makes
it's a
sense.
popular program. Everybody uses it now.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously we went through a whole journey to change how checks were coming into the business, how we could do things faster, and be a lot more customer centric, as compared to having to sit on a check. Sometimes the checks could get sat on for 3 weeks until they got banked, and until the underwriting had finished. Clients that were purchasing policies for very good protection reasons for their family were obviously eager to know that they had made this purchase, that it had been accepted, that they were on cover, and that they could rest easily. So to fast forward, my business partner and I, David, we're high school buddies from Sydney. I've known David for nearly, 30 odd years.
Right.
Since we first met when I joined in year 6. And I caught up with David after quite a few years, and this is around 2019 period, and we started brainstorming. He had joined a startup out of Silicon Valley that was doing an earned wage access platform. So when you were between paychecks, and people in Hong Kong get paid monthly, and for some people there might be something unexpected that turns up, and they need to access their wages. So he was setting up the Hong Kong business and business throughout Asia. And I kind of asked him this question. I said, well, look, I've got this great business idea. It's using a few of the new technology features, and we found a business in Australia that was going gangbusters, that was doing buy now, pay later. And we thought, well, what's the big things that people buy now, pay later in Hong Kong, or what could be a great part of it? So we immediately kind of started doing some analysis, getting all these reports from different agencies around town, and we ultimately fell on travel and travel experiences. And we thought, well, that's great. It's very positive. It's not a set of shoes or a new iPhone or anything like that. This is something which is fun, and we want that to be linked with the brand and to be fun. And we started going through the business model and looking at what the other buy now, pay laters around the world were doing, and everyone was linking it by a credit card.
Right.
And in Hong Kong, we thought, well, that's good. But once we started looking at the merchant fee for credit card payments, it then became a bit obvious that that was quite expensive. So we went back to what I'd found in 2019 with faster payments, and started going around to my old friends that were in different banks, a little bit later on, and to try and find a way that we could make faster payments work, but for e-commerce payments, not just for these large insurance policy
Right.
payments.
But still in the context of a buy now, pay later experience.
Yes, that was where we started. And the model was very simple. It was 1/3 deposit when you purchase at the point of sale, and then you pay the remaining 2/3 over the next 2 months. And what we wanted to do was to take that kind of experience that you got from Octopus, where you could top up the wallet, it would automatically come out of your account, and to link your buy now, pay later purchase with your bank account.
Mhm.
And obviously there was a huge arbitrage compared to a subscription payment on a credit card. And we decided, wow, this is great. So we went onto that. We signed up a buy now, pay later deal. This is in early 2020, and in March 2020, COVID hit.
Yeah.
So we went from lots of air travel in Hong Kong down to relatively none.
None.
Um,
Very little.
yeah,
1%.
very,
Yeah.
very little. And we thought, wow, we need to do something a bit different. As the months are rolling out, and things are happening differently around the world, we just went, well, look, we need to pivot. We've built a great platform. We can take payments on this platform. We can well, what was in the pipeline for development at that time was linking the bank account to our account. And we thought, well, and we knew a lot of different small to medium sized businesses in Hong Kong. And we thought, well, why don't we start talking to them and see if they want to get an arbitrage on this? Because
Because was your initial focus just on retail, consumers
um,
flying around and doing stuff?
it was, yeah. So the first was on travel, because travel we thought was really in need of somewhat disruption
Yeah.
when it comes to payments. And it's a great product. Who doesn't love going on a holiday? And we wanted that brand affinity with good times and a good product.
And then when you started talking to the merchants, small business side, was it still around travel, or was it around like T&E, travel and expenses and that kind of thing? Or was there something a little more substantial to the kind of spending and budget questions that you had?
It was anything and everything.
Mhm.
So we started off with a kind of a group membership where they would kind of take an order for cheese, and they would import cheese into Hong Kong. At some months they would do 7 or 8 tons of cheese. And during lockdown,
That's about, that's my monthly consumption of cheese.
there we go. Um, yeah, so look, during lockdown, we saw a huge uptake in e-commerce, and in a traditional market where e-commerce really wasn't a thing. People could just walk to your next corner, you'd walk into the supermarket, purchase whatever you want, and then you would go home. But COVID made people start thinking differently, and you started seeing the HKTV mall trucks running around the streets, everyone ordering from Amazon. And what we said to these merchants was, we said, guys, well, there's two things that we can do for you. First of all is that you save on credit card payments, which credit card was the primary way for people to make payments for e-commerce purchases at that time. And then secondly was to build your own loyalty with your customer, because the perverse thing about credit cards and credit card fees, is that you're paying for your customer to be loyal to the bank or to the credit card company that issues it.
Because they're issuing
And
miles or some other kind of rewards on top, and for a lot of people, that's a huge thing. That's almost why they want to use a credit card, especially for lumpy purchases.
that's right. And the merchant's not really getting the benefit for it. It's not coming with, this reward of cash back or points or dollars or miles or whatever it is, isn't saying, well, thank you for your purchase at, this merchant. It's saying, well, thank you for having our card
Yeah.
and for using them.
And also the merchants other customers who aren't part of that program are subsidizing those other people who are, because they're still paying the high fees, because the merchant has to charge the high fees to justify paying for the hooking up to those payment networks. So everybody ends up paying those higher prices, but only some of those consumers are actually getting the extra juice on top.
That's right. And one of the stats that we quote regularly is in the US, merchants pay $138 billion a year in merchant fees to the credit card networks.
Right.
And
So your
most of
idea,
that, yeah, most of that is to pay for loyalty and to pay for those points and miles and everything that people collect.
there is one other aspect though, that what people are paying for, which of course is fraud, security, being able to get your money back if you declare a fraud. There's a certain, if I dare say to someone with your background, a certain insurance built into that. How did you face that issue, and what did merchants have to say about the efficacy of being able to get payments resolved if there's a dispute or a fraud?
Well, going back to the travel example, you're right. There is protections for customers that have this. However, from a merchant perspective, um, the, and it's called a chargeback.
Yeah.
This is the mechanism that has been built, for quite some time. Merchant has 14 days in order to answer a chargeback case. And you can imagine if you're a travel company, you've priced a product which it's a kind of a use it or lose it type product. The customer goes to their bank or to their credit card company, puts a case forward, and because they're very pro consumer, they're not pro merchant. The merchant generally loses out. And there have been some cases where there's some crazy, chargeback scenarios. There was one lady, I believe, in the US, and this was a story that was relayed to us when we were learning about this whole mechanism, that had a holiday and went onto a website. The front of the hotel had a beautiful sandy beach. However, when she arrived there, there wasn't any sand because there was all of this coastal erosion, I'm led to believe. And she went back to her credit card company and said, I was, expecting a sandy beach and I got, brown dirt. This is not, they did not deliver what was expected. And she won the chargeback case. Now, an extreme example, but I believe it shows that somehow that it can also go wrong, and it's not really always in the best interests. One of the things that we did when they're with the airline, if there is disruption, so let's say there's a typhoon, let's say there is cancellations for the flights. We built a system which can help them to manage those mass cancellation and mass disruption flights, so that it's not as crazy as what the credit card system is. And there's nothing worse than if you are approved a refund, then having to wait 14 business days for the money to come back into your account, and especially if the merchant's done all of their work to approve that refund case. So for our merchants, we do refunds for them. We do refunds which can be even less than 100 Hong Kong dollars. Once they're approved, and the merchant has raised that successfully, they're issued within the next business day.
So
We
essentially,
pay merchant.
yeah. So Julian, so Divit is now in the business of helping merchants run their own points programs, paying via FPS in Hong Kong for any kind of money in or money out needs that they have.
Yeah, so we help merchants accept real-time payments with FPS in Hong Kong,
Mhm.
and we're partnered with Citibank. And one of the major reasons why we're partnered with Citibank is around the globe, you have about 75 different countries that have real-time payment rails.
Mhm.
And as we're seeing, like with Hong Kong, they're doing the kind of the proof of concept where they're linking FPS here in Hong Kong with prompt pay in Thailand. So you can walk into a 7-Eleven in Thailand, open up your banking app, scan the prompt pay code, and then it will handle the payment to go across borders to Thailand. So I think there's going to be more of that in the future. But if you're a multinational merchant, and we're having many of these conversations, they obviously love the cost savings. You know, which merchant doesn't want to save on payment costs and cut a chunk out of that $138 billion? They want for their e-commerce platforms and also for point of sale to have one integration point. They want to deal with one bank that globally can make it happen. They want the security, the speed, the convenience for their customers in the same way, or if not better than what they currently have, and they just want it to be easy.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. We're helping them with a number of pre-built plugins. We've got APIs that do everything, and then to the earlier point about loyalty, we will accept their loyalty currency, so that their customers get the benefit that they know where they've made the purchase from, about what they've purchased, and how they are earning those rewards.
And then from Citi's perspective, you're basically a channel for them to grow their Asia or their global merchant acquiring business.
Yeah, which we piloted here in Hong Kong. We Our ability is that we can onboard and to get merchants up and running with taking real-time payments in a matter of hours. I think our record is, we had a phone call with one merchant's tech team after they signed up, and we obviously did our own DD and onboarding. Had the merchant's tech team on a call. We went out then in the afternoon to train the staff, and they were taking real-time payments that afternoon.
If you had been still in the consumer side, you might have struggled to get a bank to support you because you'd be taking away from those hefty consumer issuing fees. So I guess that this was enabled partly because you made that pivot out of consumer into the merchant side, and now you're dealing with a very different aspect of the bank.
Yeah, that's right. I think Citi's ethos and their mentality when it comes to innovation is that they prefer to be innovated, and to have another part of the bank kind of eat their lunch, so to speak, rather than having someone from outside do it.
Yeah. Okay. And how do you see the big trend of linking, I guess, rewards or other types of payment related advantages in the merchant acquiring space? Where do you see the new battle lines being drawn? You're obviously on the front lines representing, one of the institutions in that regard. Um, what is it going to, what will be the factors that make merchant acquiring work or not work for these banks now that over the past few years they've all been sort of returning to this industry?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. I don't think the age of the credit card is dead. And I think people are going to use credit cards. I think they'll keep on continuing if they enjoy the bits of plastic. But there's definitely a groundswell of opinion, of a movement. When you look at some of the other countries that have had these real-time payment rails, working for, purchases, be that in-person purchases, be that online for e-commerce purchases. I think it's all about choice. I think customers should be able to choose and should be able to save. I think it should be a win-win for the customer and for the merchant, that if a merchant wants to offer more expensive payment methods, so be that some of the wallets or some of the kind of wallet intermediaries like PayPal, for instance, where they kind of put that middle firewall between other merchants where they might not trust with their credit card information because they might have had a negative experience in the past. um, you know I think let the customer choose. And we definitely have seen when we get the situation right, that we get upwards to 60% adoption and people moving across from credit cards to try out new payment methods. We've got our membership that likes to use Divit, and that likes the FPS experience. And now it's about just connecting more countries to the platform and really scaling it.
And last question, because we're almost out of our time here, Julian, but that scaling question. On paper, it sounds easy because you have FPS-like environments in these other domestic markets. You've got the backing of a bank that operates in many markets. But how easy is it really to scale, and how much customization do you require, even if you go to Thailand, and there are some nitty-gritty differences between these different payments, some settlement time, whether it's a matter of seconds or minutes, regulation. So for any business coming out of a small market like Hong Kong, international scale is usually the only way to really grow and have heft. But cost is then, of course, on top of that. So what's the balance for you? What are you finding in terms of the costs and the slowness of going market by market, or is it actually pretty rapid and you feel that you can kind of burst out of the box?
Well, we follow where our merchants and our customers want to go. So, we're not going to go open up a greenfield market without having someone that comes in so that we can really learn on the ground and deal with it. From a tech point of view, a real-time payment across the different countries is very similar. So, I quote about 85% reuse of our platform, and we just have to then deal with that 15%, which is different in each different market. The great thing with having a partner such as Citi is they have, in their back end, kind of rationalized and to kind of make a bank account the same in each different country. And there are different rules on top of it, that's for sure, but fundamentally it's the same. So we've done some proof of concepts where we have stood up some other payment QR codes in different countries. That is not incredibly difficult, but it does come with its slight little problems, and we've worked through a lot of those already, and hopefully this quarter we'll have a couple of new markets under our belt and ready to go for our clients.
Okay. So besides Hong Kong, do you have other markets that are live today?
Not at the moment, only Hong Kong live. We are very close on two others.
Okay, great. And the flip side to the revenue is the funding side. How well funded are you? It's been a tough environment for the past 2 years for fintechs and startups in general. What's your runway looking like?
Well, look, it has been, and thankfully we've got a wonderful network of our, friends, our family, former colleagues that believe in this business and that believe in myself and David, to run this. We run quite a lean and tight ship. I've always had this view about automating everything that I possibly can. So we've got a lot of automations that run through our different platforms. I'm not going to use the term AI because everyone seems to be on this kind of AI bandwagon. But when we see something where there's a repeat use case, we will build something that we can automate it with, and then we build lots and lots of dashboards, lots of monitoring, lots of instant messaging, internally about things. And that really helps us get that scale. So in different countries, we will need physical presence, which is fine. And we obviously get a lot of that scale through Citi, which they're fantastic. We've solved this problem for a number of their clients. Their relationship managers in that market, go and tell the story. We pitch together with them. And we end up having these wonderful conversations and start getting merchants turned on and really reaping the benefits and
So
savings.
are you guys VC funded, or is it partly funded by Citi, or is it just bootstrap with you and your co-founder and some individual backers?
Yep, that's right. The last, so bootstrapping and all of our different friends and angels.
Is there a point where you're going to have to get some kind of more formalized funding together?
I think there is. I think at the moment, we're okay. We're good. As I said, it's a very lean and mean team, and thankfully, the scale that we get from the bank is really helping us, so that we don't have to have, huge sales teams. We get those really solid leads from the bank, and we're able to execute on that.
Great. Okay. Well, look, it sounds like 2024 is going to be an exciting year for Divit. You're going to open up your first non-Hong Kong markets. See how that goes. Julian, wish you much success for the year.
James, thank you so much. And look, 2024 is going to be a fantastic year. I'm feeling really buzzed and raring to go.
Great. Well, thanks for joining me on DigFin VOX.
Thank you.